Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. Going to have a look at the weather next week's 10 days for today's second video. That will take us to around the 24th of September, so that gets us sort of to the final week of the month. There's signs of a change in around a week's time, although it is all hinging on what is currently Tropical Storm Humberto, and that's where we'll start with this update talking about what's happening in the tropical Atlantic. So a change towards more unsettled conditions might take place in around a week's time. It hinges though on the track of this tropical storm, and as such there's a lot of uncertainty about that. We do actually cover this within the weekend broadcast, which has been released as always on a Saturday. Got your weekend look at, so have a look at that when you're done with this video. But of course we will cover the same sort of time frames in this video, but extend out beyond it as well. So let's get on with video then, and then at the end of the video I'll say what's happening tomorrow. So we're going to start off in the tropical Atlantic. All of a sudden, we have got loads and loads of disturbance areas, as well as the tropical storm Humberto that we was expecting when we did yesterday's video. So we're going to have to take all of these one by one. Where should we start? That's the question. I suppose we're going to try and find disturbance 1. So that is disturbance 1 just there, that yellow X there. Let's see what it's saying about disturbance 1. That has a 0% chance of cyclone formation in the next 48 hours. With this one, they're saying a fast-moving tropical wave is located about 950 miles east of the Lesser Antilles. This system is producing limited shower activity, and significant development of this system is not anticipated during the next several days while it moves quickly westward. So we've got a 0% chance of cyclone formation in the next 48 hours and just a 10% chance in the next 5 days as well. And now I'm going to try and find disturbance 2. So that one, just there, this yellow X just here, that is disturbance 2. So this one has a 20% chance of cyclone formation in the next 48 hours. National Hurricane Center with this is saying an elongated area of disturbed weather is located about 650 miles southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. Gradual development of this system is possible during the next several days, while a tropical depression could form early next week. And a tropical depression could form early next week while it moves westward across the tropical Atlantic. Just a 20% chance of a tropical cyclone in the next 2 days, but a 60% chance, much higher, in the next 5 days. So that one just there, disturbance 2, that could well be one to watch for next week perhaps. Disturbance 3 has a 0% chance of cyclone formation in the next 2 days, and a 0% chance in the next 5 days, so we don't really have to worry about that one. I think we'll move away from that quite quickly. And then finally we've got disturbance 4 just here, and that has a 10% chance of cyclone formation in the next 48 hours and a 30% chance in the next 5 days. With this one, they're saying a large area of showers and thunderstorms over the eastern Gulf of Mexico is primarily associated with an upper level low pressure area. Only slow development of this system is likely during the next couple of days. However, conditions could become more conducive for development early next week as the system moves over the western Gulf of Mexico. So again, that could be one to watch next week. And then finally, we have got Tropical Storm Humberto just here. So that's the disturbance area we were looking at yesterday. We did say it's very likely that this will become a named tropical storm. We thought that'd be Humberto. That is indeed what has transpired. Let's see what's going to happen with Humberto. So we need to go to there. And so this is the current position of Humberto, just to the north of the Bahamas. Tropical Storm Humberto is going to move in that direction northwards. And then by early next week, by Monday, it looks like it's going to become a hurricane. Category 1 Hurricane Humberto just there early next week. And then heading off towards Bermuda, perhaps. It might start to move towards Bermuda as we get through towards the middle of next week. Again, as a hurricane. That is, at the moment, it's being forecast to be a Category 1 hurricane heading towards Bermuda. But of course it could undergo development. We'll need to keep an eye on it. Remember what happened with Dorian. At one point that was only supposed to be like a tropical storm or a category 1 hurricane, and then very quickly it underwent very rapid development and finished up as a category 5 hurricane. So we're not saying that's going to happen with Humberto. We're not saying that Humberto will become a category 5 hurricane as it moves into the Bermuda area, but we do need to keep an eye on it, of course, and we will be doing so over the next couple of days. If we just go backwards, the latest observations from Humberto look like that. So it's currently giving sustained winds of 40 miles an hour. Its central pressure is 1,004 millibars, and it's moving northwestwards at 7 miles per hour. So it looks like it's going to do something a little bit like that over the next few days, and then head in that sort of direction towards Bermuda as we get through towards the middle of next week. Have to keep a close eye on it to see how it develops in the days ahead. Humberto could have impacts on our weather as well. In around a week's time, we could see that the ridge of high pressure that's been with us for the past week will be with us in the coming week. May start to weaken, and part of that could be down to the remains of Hurricane Humberto. These are the 500 millibar high thermal flow charts from the Penn State University. We've got the ECMWF on the top, and the GFS, which I'll have in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80 feet is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure and low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Orange and red extrapolates high pressure, blue to low pressure. So we can see that the ridge that we've got at the moment, and we'll have for the next several days, the area of above average heights is kind of being pushed southwards and southeastwards into more central and southern and southeastern parts of Europe, as this deep trough of low pressure with an invigorated jet stream is starting to head in from off the Atlantic, and the jet stream is running through the UK rather like that. There's another deep trough into the far northeast of Europe and west of Russia, by the way. That's bringing very cool and autumnal conditions to them. But for us, it looks like this ridge is gradually being eroded, gradually being pushed southwards and eastwards by this sort of reinvigorated jet stream, and these areas of low pressure are starting to deepen in the Atlantic. Could that be the first hints of autumn in around 7, 8, 9, 10 days' time? This is how the GFS is looking. If anything, it's weaker with the ridge. It's collapsing it very, very quickly, this area of high pressure with the below average heights in the Atlantic, again containing the remains, at least partly anyway, of tropical storm and probably soon to be Hurricane Humberto. So that low pressure is beginning to flatten off the ridge. The ridge is decaying, and it's weakening very quickly, very rapidly, as low pressure is developing in the Atlantic with a reinvigorated jet stream. So both the major models, the GFS and the ECM, are seeing a change to something rather more unsettled in around 10 days' time. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. We're at Chorley in the northwest of England today. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Chorley, and we're starting up here, so quite warm. Again, the weather is pretty warm and will be staying warm for the rest of the weekend. I think it could see 25 Celsius in central London tomorrow. After that, though, the temperature is on the slide. It's not a quick process, but certainly by around Tuesday, Wednesday, the temperatures have cooled off. Then they start to lift up again a little bit towards the end of the week and into next weekend. And then it looks like we get a more definitive drop in the temperature, back certainly quite close to average as we go through this last week of September. There's quite a bit of scatching there. These are the cooler ensemble members, these are the warmer ensemble members, but overall it does look as though the temperatures are dropping a little bit through that final week of September, and it looks like it's becoming more unsettled too. So loads of dry weather over the next week. There'll be plenty of dry and fine conditions to come. We do have a precipitation spike just there. That's going to be associated with some rain that we've got tomorrow and may last into the early hours of Monday. Will be affecting northern parts of England. But really, there's going to be a lot of dry weather in the next week. But then you can see the precipitation spikes starting to become much more numerous as we go through that last week of September. Again, that would be what you'd expect to see if high pressure is being eroded and low pressure is heading in off the Atlantic. This is all extended range stuff, though. I have to re-emphasise that. And it does hinge a lot on what happens with the remains of Tropical Storm Humberto. So it could we could see changes on this idea. That's what I'm trying to get across. But at the moment, it does look as though the last week of September, as we've been talking about for quite a while, actually could be heralding a change to something more unsettled. Temperature anomalies from the 14th to 22nd of September, very close to average, not a big deviation either way. Perhaps a little bit warmer than average for England and Wales, possibly a little bit cooler than average for Scotland, but it's not a big deviation either way, very close to average and still remaining dry. Any changes once settled conditions is beyond the week ahead time frame. So from the 14th to 22nd of September, we're still very, very dry across much of the country. Over in America, it's a warm scene. Temperature anomalies in weekend for much of the North America, particularly these Midwestern areas coming out much warmer than average. Does look a little bit cooler, though, over in the far west of the states. Precipitation-wise, varying from area to area. It looks like generally it's a little bit on the wetter side, perhaps, of some of these central and western states, although California looks largely dry. I mean, probably very dry in the southeast and the east of the states. But it does vary from state to state. So coming back to home, this is how the GFS is looking for Tuesday. High pressure is moving back into the country on Tuesday after it allows that weather front to come southwards. Sunday to Monday. That'll be a very, very weak feature, though, but it will lower the temperature. So as we go into the middle of next week, we're dominated by high pressure, but we're in a cooler air mass, and certainly by night, there could be some pretty chilly nights coming up in the middle of the week, possibly with ground frost and mist and fog patches. Now, I've got to Friday, and of course, this is the remains just here of what is currently Tropical Storm Humberto, but may become Hurricane Humberto by Monday. That is the remains, that area of low pressure, of this tropical storm slash hurricane. We've got low pressure already beginning to get a little bit stronger in the North Atlantic, but we are still under this ridge of high pressure. However, the ridge is being put under pressure by a reinvigorated jet stream and by these areas of low pressure in the Atlantic. As we go through to Saturday, where we find that high pressure then beginning to decline away to the east, it's moving into Germany and Poland. We've got a weather system and an area of low pressure just here, a weather front is just there. And then, of course, we've got the remains of Humberto just there. That is following in from off the Atlantic. And what this GFS run does, it actually moves the remains of Humberto to the country as we go into the second half of next weekend. And so by the time we get through to Monday the 23rd of September, all of a sudden that high pressure has gone very quickly. It's just collapsed into the southeast of Europe, and we've actually got low pressure dominating. We've got a deep area of low pressure too at 985 millibars, or possibly even 980 millibars, and it's bringing wet and windy weather as well, this area of low pressure across the country. That really would shake things up, I think. By the time you get through towards day 10, we're in this flat, showery, westerly flow, but this then is unleashing the Atlantic. So as we go beyond day 10, we're going into quite an unsettled looking pattern of low pressure around Iceland and quite strong westerly winds. Again, we've got the remains of another tropical storm or hurricane type feature, perhaps that's disturbance too, that we were just talking about a few minutes ago. The remains of another tropical storm or hurricane just there, heading into the North Atlantic close to Newfoundland there on Wednesday the 25th of September. And so we're just going to an increasingly unsettled pattern then for the final week of September. There's low pressure never far away, and that's how we look as we get to the last day of September. It's as far as we can go with the GFS today, to 384 hours. It's looking genuinely quite unsettled then, quite disturbed, wet and windy weather pushing in from off the Atlantic. Big changes for the last week of September, all triggered by the remains of Tropical Storm Humberto. This is how the GEM is looking. So again, we've got high pressure dominating through much of the coming week. Going to be high and dry as we go through to the weekend. We find the high pressure gradually declining. It's collapsing into the east-southeast Europe. This is the remains of Humberto just here, this area of low pressure. And that's been quite a bit of wet weather in from off the Atlantic as we head up towards day 10. Doesn't look quite as unsettled as what the GFS is showing, but it's going in the same direction, really, which is easing away the ridge. The ridge is collapsing into the east and southeast of Europe as low pressure and the jet stream being reinvigorated by the remains of Humberto low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic. So it's not quite as unsettled with GEM as what the GFS is showing by day 10, but it is going in that direction. And then we've got the ECMWF again, of course. High pressure is going to be dominant in the weekend. This is all covered by the weekend forecast, of course. Get to Friday, high pressure still is in control of the weather, but over the weekend, that's when the change begins to happen as low pressure starts to move in from off the Atlantic. So in a week's time, we've got low pressure out in the Atlantic, where systems are heading in with fronts bringing outbreaks of rain. The ridge has declined into southeast of Europe. There's the remains of Humberto just there. A little bit later bringing Humberto into the North Atlantic compared to the GFS, but eventually this low pressure does become quite a major feature in the Atlantic. So by the time you get through to day 10, that's how we look. Low pressure is out to west of us. And you will think that that's only going to be going in one direction, and it will be going in that direction. And it just looks as though all models really are pointing towards something much more unsettled, much more mobile, bouts of rain probably, and maybe some quite strong winds that last week of September. That seems to be the way most of the model output is trending today. These are the options that we've got on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which is the 24th of September from the Icelandic Met Office. So we have 15 members of the ECM ensembles, including the ECM control room that has deep low pressure out to west the northwest of the country. It does have a bit of ridge down to our south, but essentially these options are unsettled. Low pressure is coming in off the Atlantic. You would expect unsettled conditions, particularly in the north and west, but probably extending across much of the country. But then we've got these 9 just here that are much more anti-cyclonic, keeping the ridge going up to day 10, which keeps the low pressure at bay in the Atlantic. So obviously that's going to be a more unsettled one, albeit the ridge is being put under pressure, so they may collapse a ridge, those ensemble members, within a day or so. But up to day 10, those ones are just about keeping us under high pressure, as are these 8 just here. These ones have below the trough in the middle of the Atlantic. The ridge is over to the east of the country. Again, the ridge is being put under pressure by the jet stream and by the low pressure in the Atlantic, but still just about the ridge is hanging on by its fingertips. These 7 down here are the most unsettled ensemble members. They're really unleashing the Atlantic by day 10, and these 7 here are pretty unsettled too. This does include the operational run as well. That's the run we was just looking at. So they're quite unsettled as well. The ridge won't truly collapse by that point. And then finally we've got 5 just there with low pressure out to the northwest and a ridge to the south. Again, the ridge is declining there. It's being put under stress. It's collapsing, and that's going into an unsettled pattern. So timings are a little bit different between ensemble members. Obviously, some of them are very quick to collapse this ridge, bring low pressure in from the Atlantic. Other ones are delaying it a bit. I think most ensemble members within the ECM ensembles, and I would suspect the GFS is the same, most ensemble members are going towards more unsettled conditions by day 10. And then we get to 2 weeks' time. These are the options we've got, more or less to the end of the month, 29th of September. 14 members of the ECM ensembles, just with low pressure over the top of the country, so they're going to be very unsettled. 14 with low pressure to the east-northeast or mid-Atlantic ridge. They're going to be cool and showery. 13 with low pressure up to the north of the country. Again, they look quite unsettled. And then 10 with low pressure down to our southwest. And some ridging up to the north, albeit quite weak ridging. That would be unsettled too, but probably focusing the rain more on England and Wales. This last week of September could be yielding the arrival of autumn. Finally, CFSV2, so these are the options that we've got on the table. No, they're not. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts for the next 4 weeks. So these are broken down into weekly periods. First weekly period will take us from the 14th to the 20th of September, and the coming week is dominated by high pressure. Hardly surprising with the charts we've just been looking at. So a high pressure will remain in control, at least for the next week. Then we go through to week 2, which is the 21st, 27th of September. The high is sort of slipping a bit to south-southwest, could start to allow some lower pressure in from the north. That's probably more settled than the charts we've just been looking at. So the CFS is trying to hold on to that ridge through the last full week of September. That is week 3, which is the 28th of September to the 4th of October. The ridge then is just to our south-southeast. Low pressure is up to the north. So the CFS is really trying to hang on to this ridge of high pressure. Doesn't want to break it down. So if you're enjoying this extended spell of dry and warm late summer weather, then it's not a done deal that we will break the high pressure down and turn and settle for the last week of September. So I've been saying all the way through the video, it's dependent on what happens with Humberto, really, and there will be an element of doubt, a big element of doubt, with what's going to happen with the remains of this tropical storm in a week's time. We get through to week 4, which is the 5th to the 11th of October, and then the CFS is looking rather more unsettled. The ridge end is clearly collapsed down to southern Europe and pulling out into the middle of the North Atlantic, and that's just allowing low pressure and jet stream to come in for the early part of October. So it's kind of like representative of the discrepancy we were seeing within the model output with JMA Friday yesterday. You remember if you watched JMA Friday yesterday, there was that split between the CFS, which was trying to hang on to these fine conditions until early October and then turn things unsettled, with the JMA, which wanted to turn things unsettled through the last week of September. The shorter range model output has shifted to that idea, I think, quite definitively today, but it turns unsettled through the last week of September. But the CFS is still trying to cling on to that ridge for dear life until the beginning of October. And don't rule out that option. That is a possibility if the remains of Humberto stall in the middle of the North Atlantic rather than get caught up in the jet stream and head into the UK. Then what will happen probably if the low contained remains of Humberto stalls in the middle of the Atlantic, that will probably allow the ridge to re-intensify across the north and west of Europe. None of the shorter range models have really shown that, although the GEM perhaps does a little bit, but it's certainly an option. So don't rule out the chance that this dry and fine weather could carry on into the last week of September. But at the moment, it looks like the shorter range model output has sort of shifted more towards unsettled conditions, driven, I suppose I should say, by the remains of Humberto. So we shall have to keep a close eye on it. We'll know by early next week, I would have thought, which way this is going to go. But yes, if you are enjoying this late summer weather, then you're going to have to hope that the ridge manages to hold on and Humberto stalls in the middle of the North Atlantic. If you want to see a switch to autumn, then you will be hoping that Humberto, or the remains of Humberto, gets caught up in the jet stream and heads in to the west of Europe in around a week or so's time. Right then, so that's it for the videos for today. We've got the third winter 2019-2020 update coming up at Gauss Weathervids tomorrow. That video will be released at 10 AM tomorrow morning. It'll be another epic, I can assure you of that. And then in the afternoon, we'll have a live chat on the YouTube channel, Gauss Weathervids YouTube channel, between 5 and 6 o'clock. I'll take your questions and see what you thought to the third winter 2019-2020 update. So yeah, winter updates are well and truly underway, and the third update will be with you tomorrow. That's all for now though, and thanks for watching.